Create Art Podcast. Commentary. Question. Hey there, friend. This is Timothy Chemo Bryan, your hit instigator for Create Art Podcast, where I use my over 30 years of experience in the art and education world to help you tame your inner critic and create more than you consume. We're continuing on this episode with the Kickstart Creativity cards that were made by Bonnie Smith Whitehouse. Links will be in the show notes for you. Now, what are these cards? Well, they are basically there's three types of cards in this 50 card deck, and I know you can't win poker at this or blackjack or anything like that, but you can win the creativity game for sure by going through a deck of these cards. They're split up into three different ways: intention, perspective, and action cards. And what I've been doing in 2023, and oh my gosh, I'm recording this 2 days before my birthday. So we're towards the last 2 weeks of the year here. What you do with these cards is you read through them and you get some really great inspiration from them to really kickstart that creativity. I mean, the name is super simple, kind of like Create Art Podcast, because that's what we do here. So for those of you that are watching me on YouTube, you get the you get the privilege of, or the horror of seeing my face while I do this. But it has a front and a back. The front of the card, kind of 70s, motif going on there, and has obviously the idea that we're going to be looking at, which this week is going to be question. And then it gives you what I call the little kernel of knowledge on there. And then on the back of the card, it goes a little bit deeper into what the card's all about, and then gives you three challenges. So let's do what we usually do. Let's go to the kernel first. I feel like I should be saluting somebody. The kernel of question, or the kernel of knowledge for this card. And in it says, asking questions is the hallmark of a free society. So asking questions is a good thing, I mean, I'm sure we've all, had those folks, in class and whatnot that, ask a million questions, but that's a good thing to ask questions. I'm always when I'm dealing with podcasting, I'm always asking questions. How do I do this better? How do I reach more people? How do I fulfill the needs of my listener? So that way they keep on coming back and they keep on recommending this podcast to other folks, which obviously you all already do. And I want to thank you for that. So, but questioning has always been the hallmark of a free society. So, and of a free mind. We're always, as an artist, we're always asking questions. How can I do this better? Is a question. That's a valid question. Or why is this done this way? Why are we painting this way, or why are we writing this way? Is there a way for me to break the mold and venture out into something new? So, that can be with podcasting, that can be with dance, painting, writing, music, whatever your artistic discipline. Always ask that question. Can I be doing this a different way? Why am I doing it this way? And that's not, I'm a father of twins. And, I always, the terrible twos, why? And that just happens. That's, that's the kernel of all of us. We come into this world wanting to know why stuff happens the way it does. And then eventually we get beat down by so many people. And it's like, why even ask? Just do it and be done with it. And I get that a lot at my day job. So I still ask questions though. And I'm still known as the podcast guy, and I'm still employed. So that's great. Another thing I always like to do, and this is off of the card, is I always like to go after the definition of these words because when I was getting my education, and I say, I've got 30 years, in arts and education, but when I was getting my education, that was my big thing is always asking questions, always asking, well, what's the definition of this? And, why is this way? And I always, told my professors and whatnot, okay, explain it to me as if, I wasn't in this world. Explain it to me like a layperson. And when I was, a teaching assistant, I would tell my students, explain it to me like I've never been in theater. And if they couldn't, then I'm like, then you don't truly understand it. If you can't explain it to somebody that is outside of the discipline, then you don't truly understand it. You need to go back and understand it some more. So Cambridge Dictionary gives us the definition of question as a sentence or phrase used to find information in an exam, a problem that tests the person's knowledge or ability, any matter that needs to be dealt with or considered. So I like the first part of it. A sentence or phrase used to find out information. When we ask these questions, we're trying to get more information so that way we can do our art better. So that way we can maybe find a new way of doing it. Maybe we don't truly understand, what's happening. So we ask the question. And as an artist, we should always be asking the questions of ourselves and other artists. Other artists, how did you do that? Can you show me? Why did you do it that way? And can I show you the way that I do it? And let's see where the faults are. So with question, this is one of my favorite. This is one of my favorite cards of all of them. I like them all. All 50 are nice, but when they refer you to other cards, it's just like gosh. But this one I really dig because I've always been asking questions, and I always will ask questions. And my kids ask questions of me, and I encourage that. And yes, I am the person that is in the meeting going to ask the question, why are we here? Why are we doing this? What's the point? What is our mission? What is our end goal? What does right look like? And if management can't answer that question, then I'm like, then why are we here? What was the purpose of this meeting? How did this get us closer to where we need to be? So enough with that. So let's go back to the card here, and it usually gives us about a couple of sentences here that sparks a little bit more debate in your head or a little bit more activity in your brain. Welcome questions in your sacred life and in your creative life, and beware of any person or institution that doesn't want you to ask questions. Ooh. Questions usually begin as large, unwieldy, and unfocused. Questioning is a process that helps us narrow, propelling us into a fresh space where we can ask even more refined questions. One of the things when I started theater is, I told them, I don't know what I don't know. And I need you all to help me fill in the gaps of that. I had some good teachers that could help me fill in the gaps. But, not even knowing the question to ask can be daunting. And it can be really, intimidating. If you don't know which question to ask to get the answer that you want, then you're in a world of trouble. Yummy coffee there. Metropolis Coffee, not a sponsor of this podcast yet. But when we don't even know the question to ask, that can be intimidating. But I think if we approach the questions that we ask with, what is our final outcome? What do we want? What knowledge do we want to gain from that? Then we, and if the question is big and messy, that's okay. I'm getting ready to do a benchmark study for work on financial wellness programs with other federal agencies. So I have two lists of questions. My first list of questions is kind of the big unwieldy ones. And then my second list of questions are my follow-up questions for it. So that way I can chisel at the information that I want to get at. So think about it that, if you're interviewing or questioning something, or it's ask the big ones and then follow it up with the little ones to get it more precise and to get what you want out of whatever you're questioning. Now, as far as challenges are concerned, first challenge is new doctoral students are often told that the goal of their forthcoming years of study is to arrive at a really good question. Can you articulate a really good question? Well, not off the top of my head, but it when we find those really good questions, when we listen to other podcasts and go, "Ooh, that was a good question." Dave Jackson from School of Podcasting has a little voiceover that goes, "Ooh, that's a good question." Um, but you'll know when you ask a really good question, and so will the person who's being asked that question. And a lot of times, they're going to acknowledge that. I know. I've done a lot of interviews, and I've had a lot of. I know an interview has gone good when somebody tells me that's a really good question. It's some people can do it off the top of their head, and other people can't. I would say if you're interviewing somebody, or if you have a teacher, try to find out the questions that have already been asked, if you can. If not, go ahead and ask the big, dumb, stupid questions. Just dive into it. Don't be bad about it. Don't feel bad about it. But just dive in and ask the big, dumb, stupid questions, and then follow it up with some good, some questions that will chip away at their answer. And I don't mean chip away as refute their answer, but chip away to find out how they got to that answer. And sometimes that's even better than finding out the answer to the question. Finding out how they got to that answer is a great story. The next challenge is compose an unanswerable question, either alone or with collaborators. Well, the first one that comes to my mind is, does a tree make a sound in the forest if it when it falls, if there's no one there to hear it? That's really cool. But yeah, see if you can do a unanswerable question. That's a challenge right there, and you can incorporate it into your artwork, whatever your art is. So see if you can do something that is unanswerable. You might be surprised. That's a tough one. That's a tough one to do. It's a very philosophical one to do too. So that would add some philosophy and some thought behind your work. Oh no, adding thought behind our work, Tim, come on now. The third challenge is reopen some old computer files or browse some of your favorite websites and see what opportunities for digitally inspired. No, that's not what I want. Um, what am I here for, and what is my purpose? The great thinker Viktor Frankl said these are the questions that make us want to keep living. Reflect on your answers. So yeah, what am I here for? What's going on? Why am I here? So try to see if you can answer that question. It'll take a lifetime. It'll take a lifetime because I often think, what am I here for? What am I doing this podcast for? Well, this podcast is a gateway to do other things. And one of the other things that I'm doing, or I'm contemplating doing, is starting up a podcast just for the Fredericksburg area. I mean, anyone can listen to it, but it'll be just focusing on Fredericksburg artists because I live in a community that is very rich with a artistic scene. So, why not do a podcast that just focuses on the arts in Fredericksburg? I mean, the Arts Commission doesn't have it. And, I can always show, hey, listen, I've got these podcasts. I know how to do podcasts. You guys want to pay me to do this? Because I'd be more than happy to. Why wouldn't they? So, it can be a way to make a side income. Just saying, just saying, your art could, flip over and be your full time job if you want it to, or if you don't want it to, that's okay too. And I'm just, yeah, there we go. So reflect on that. Why are you here? What's your purpose? Um, and that's not necessarily a depressing thing to think about. And if you don't have a good answer, that's okay. That's I'm not gonna bite your arm off for that. I am gonna bite your arm if you're not thinking about it. By the way, I do have a link to Viktor Frankl in the show notes for this if you're interested in learning more about Viktor Frankl. So, a couple of points I'd like you to consider when you're thinking about questions and questioning your art and questioning the art that you see. And that's the first question. The first idea is discovering inspiration. Questioning allows you to explore the world around you with a curious mind. What inspires you, what resonates with you, and when you delve into these questions, you can identify themes and you can sources of inspiration that way. Now for me, I have my own personal take on inspiration, and it has evolved over the years. First I thought I had to be drunk to write good poetry. No, I think a lot of poets start off that way, but I digress. um, but when I delve into what inspires me, what resonates with me, when I look all around me, I'm always inspired. I'm always amazed at what goes on. Just the look of a child reading a book. That's inspiring right there. Going out in my back porch here and looking at the tree as it goes through all the cycles of life, all the seasons. Right now we're here and just about ready to enter winter. uh, I've got a couple of trees out here that they've shed all their leaves, and I'm looking at the moss growing on them. And then I know in a few months there's going to be buds on those leaves, and then there's going to be a full foliage, and then um, the leaves will fall off again, and then we'll be right back where I'm at right now in a year's time. So inspiration is right outside my door. Inspiration is right inside this room, and I need to clean it up. So I'm inspired to clean up my room. It also helps you define your voice. Each artist has a unique voice. I have a unique voice. It used to be more unique when I had my neck surgery, and we fused C4 through C7 vertebrae. That voice was really interesting. But what we all have that unique voice. So what do you want to do to convey that voice through your art? How can you do that? That's a great question to ask. And it's a great way to experiment and find new ways to do that. Last thing I want you to think about is, overcoming challenges. Let's say you're stuck on something. If you ask questions to people that that have done stuff like this before, then you can maybe get an answer or a way of doing it that'll get you to the answer and get you to the final product. But if you don't ask those questions, you're going to sit there and go, man, I can't get this finished ever. I know how that feels. I've got a couple of novels that I'm having a hard time finishing. So I need to talk to my friends that are novelists that are, writing either full time or part time and making money at it, and go, how do I finish this? How do I get this to the? How do I push this to the finish line? I have it too. I have a lot of projects around here that I haven't finished, but that's okay because once they are done, they are fantastic, and I really love them, and I love selling them, giving them out as gifts, what have you. So think about that. How is it going to overcome your challenge? How is it? How are you going to learn more problem solving skills? That's what questioning does for you. All right. Well, I hope you've really enjoyed this episode of Create Art Podcast, where we're talking about questioning from the Kickstart Creativity deck of cards by Bonnie Smith Whitehouse. Again, in the show notes, you'll get the links to that. it's that time in the show where I let you go and go ahead and do your art project or do whatever you're going to be doing, and have yourself a great rest of the day. I will be here next week on Christmas morning. Oh my gosh, I'll be doing a episode on. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Christmas is on Monday. I apologize. But before Christmas, I'll be doing a end of year wrap up show. So make sure you stay tuned for that, and you'll find out what all we have accomplished this year. And I do say we, you and me, we've been sitting here listening to each other the whole time. So if you'd like to reach out to me, feel free to use my email address, timothy@createartpodcast.com. You shoot me an email. You let me know what you liked about the show, what you didn't like about the show, how I can improve the show, make it a 5-star show for you. I'd appreciate that because I want to make this show the show that you go to when you're running out of inspiration or you're running into a brick wall and you go, okay, well, this episode was on this, and that's what I'm struggling with. Boom. Or, you go ahead and if you want to appear on the show, I'd love to have you as a guest on the show and talk about what's going on in your neck of the woods. Talk about things that you may be struggling with or things that you struggled with and got over. Or maybe you have a new book coming out or a gallery or something like a gallery showing. Um, you're a dancer or you're a cook, whatever your artistic practice. Shoot me an email. Let me know what's going on so that way we can share it with everybody else. Again, I would love it if you pass it off to a friend of yours that is in the arts or is thinking about being in the arts. With YouTube, there's a share button right down there. With most podcast apps that you're out there, they have a share button. Feel free. I'm not going to bite your arm off for sharing it with other people. By all means, go ahead and do that. I do have a newsletter. It's called the Create Art Podcast newsletter, and you can get to that at Timothy Brien, Brien, substack.com. I'll have, for those of you watching YouTube, you'll see it right below me. For those of you that are not watching me on YouTube, it'll be in the show notes. Don't worry about it. But in that newsletter, that cleverly named newsletter, I go over, some projects that you can do for the month, and then the episodes and everything else that I'm doing in that month. So it usually comes out right around the mid-month, usually right around the middle Wednesday of the month. So I'm just a weird middle Wednesday kind of guy. I like doing special episodes or interview shows and posting them on the middle Wednesday. So and that'll be there for you. And we already have a number of people that subscribe to that newsletter. So check it out for yourself. Now, speaking about sharing this podcast, I run another podcast called Find a Podcast About. It's at findapodcastabout.xyz. And that's where I review podcasts that I find binge worthy. And I toss them off to you and help you um, beat that algorithm and find your next binge-worthy podcast. I'd love for you to go ahead and take a listen to any of the shows there. I cover all genres, and these are all shows that I really enjoy. I tell you what I think about them, and I play clips from them. And sometimes I get an interview or two out of it, so that way you can hear what the podcaster is thinking about. And, you can, question that podcaster and say, what the heck are you thinking about? What are you doing? So definitely tune into that podcast right there. All right. Well, it's time for me to let you get on with your day. I do appreciate the time that you have spent with me here right now. And I look forward to spending more time with you in the weeks to come and in 2024 because we're getting close, folks. So I'd like you to go out there and tame that inner critic. Create more than you consume. Go out there and make some art for somebody you love, yourself. Until next time.